We need it. Oxygen. It's why we breathe.
Oh, see? Oh, it did record. Okay, because I think there was the stuff in the beginning there from the other things. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Small Biz Stories. And as you know, every week we bring you an incredible guest and pretty much running out of accolades to describe how amazing all of the guests are. Today we've got Jim Weldon, who's the CEO of Prospect.ai. And if you're thinking, well, maybe I don't know Jim, or maybe I do, but you probably know the impact of his work. He has worked with enterprise companies, helping them with their scale issues, from a lot of the big brands that we know to a lot of other companies who have come and risen up because of some of the strategies that Jim has helped put in place through his expertise in building ecosystems, understanding business intelligence. So we're just going to dive right in. Jim, welcome to the show.
Laurelyn, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Well, I always like to give folks a little bit of a sense of what's going on out there and who the person is. So, not you, the CEO of Prospect Desk, but you, Jim. What are you really, really good at?
Well, if you ask my wife, not much, so we won't go there. But my I would say my superpower is being able to synthesize and see what's going on in the market more than anything else. So it's understanding we all get caught up in speeds and feeds, but we forget you got to solve our problems. The challenge is how do you synthesize those two and take advantage of the market opportunity?
Ooh, that's excellent. I think that's going to really cue us up because I think so many people, entrepreneurs specifically, and business managers at large, get caught up in all the noise of everything that's out there. And how do you distill it down to the thing that's going to make the difference, or things? Maybe it's one or two, but it's not 100. Talk to us about some of that process that you use to help you distill all those gobs of information into something that could make a difference.
Um, Something called a meta model, right? So if you've never dealt with them, I'm a huge Charlie Munger fan, and he just passed away recently from Berkshire Hathaway. I didn't know he thought that way, and a lot of folks that handle a lot of data information, market trends. If you don't have a meta model, and all it is basically a short hack to how to analyze what's going on. And we came up with one, or I have come up with one on our team on how to actually look at what's going on with AI. So meta models is how I think of it. I don't know if you want to hear our little short little diatribe on how we actually think of AI, because I think if you hear this, it will very quickly you'll be like, oh, darn, I didn't think of it this way.
Oh, we definitely want to hear it because part of our conversation we're going to get into is the whole impact of AI on businesses, from small ones to the big ones to those of us that are aging out of the workplace, right? And AI is accelerating that aging out. So, talk to us about then your meta model and how you see AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So at first, like everybody else, when ChatGPT came out, I was enthralled. It was like, all the things we wish Google search did, ChatGPT does. And nobody knew what an LLM was. And now I had to get all these new vocabulary words and generative AI. And we're like, oh man, once again, we are behind. So back to the agents and thing, it's like, I just learned all this other stuff on SaaS and, cloud computing. And now it's like, here's a new group of really smart people telling us, you guys aren't really that smart. So one of the things we did is, as we were talking through this, and I was trying to explain to folks, they always say, explain it like a fifth grader can understand it. I never really liked that one. What I want to do is explain it to you like a full-grown adult. And let me give you the 30 seconds on how we look at the internet. There's seven companies that matter, right? Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Anthropic, and OpenAI. Forget what's going on in China, just in the US market. They all sit over the same aquifer, a giant body of water called the internet. And they've all dug their own little holes into the internet, right? They're out there searching and scanning all the data. The challenge is it's like a wishing well. It's very linear. You put your question, you roll it down, it gets the answer from the water, rolls it back up. Not hard, it's hard to scale. It's getting better, but basically, depending on where you are on the aquifer and the way you process it, large language models and the minerals, you get a little different answer from each one of the seven companies. That's how generative AI came into the marketplace. And the wishing well responses were amazing. We're like, this is cool. Well, the challenge is everybody's going, hey, what do I do with it? Well, now imagine we're on a river and we're in these Zodiacs, the SEAL teams with their rubber
Mhm.
rafts, Zodiacs with the big, powerful engine. That's the LLM behind you. We're racing down and we've lashed five of them together now, right? Called tasks and processes, smart agents. And we have buckets on the side. So we're running up 50 miles an hour down the river, pulling in information, throwing it in the boat, getting the task done. And we pull over to the shore, we hand the completed task off, and we keep racing ahead. That's what smart agents are doing with Agentic AI. The next set of vocabulary we don't know anything about: agentic flows, large action models. Those are where the value is really going to go. Agentic flows are going to eat SaaS software. Benioff says 1 billion smart agents will be deployed in the next 36 months by his 10 million customers. It's going to revolutionize task-driven work. We hear it's going to eat the bottom rung of the ladder, according to Reid Hoffman. Then the last piece is the ocean. Think of a big cruise ship or an aircraft carrier. Well, if I'm a Fortune 500 company, I don't want to run my business on five Zodiacs strapped together that may flip over. I need a cruise ship, big ballast, engine room, engineering team, solution architects. Oh, then we have our staterooms called service level agreements. And our customers we service are on the top deck. And we need stability and we can handle big storms and it's very secure. Aircraft carrier, I only want to use it for a little while. I don't want big agreements. Think AWS, GCP with Google. That's where it's going to go. It's not there yet. We're at the Zodiac stage right now in the evolution of what's going on. And what's going to happen is as soon as those cruise ships get solidified and they figure out how to get the value out of it, game's over. The AI will dominate most thinking, strategy, task-driven jobs. So those are my three little things of we went from the wishing well, now we're on the river. The big companies really can't rely on Zodiacs, so they're waiting for the cruise ships and the big stable platforms to get done. And everybody's like, oh, they're there. No, they're not. AWS is the bottom keel. There's no decks yet. There's no service level agreements. There's no engineering we're putting it together. But if you listen to every major study from, the McKinseys of the world, Fortune 5,000 are struggling with how to get value out. So that's the model. And ageism, the challenge is you have to add an extra order of magnitude to your learning and the synthesizing cycles, or you will be buried. I spend 2 to 3 hours a day just learning and listening and curating with my team, the top pundits, the people that are just scammers, trying to sell an information set, and then looking at platforms and trying them just to stay above water. I mean, think about it. My job is to lead and set direction. If I don't do that, I'm left behind. So that's your ageism and your here's what's going on the internet and AI.
Oh, there's so much to unpack here. So first of all, a couple of my idols as well, Reid Hoffman, Mark Benioff, and of course with Salesforce.com, taking that pioneering step of becoming the first digital workforce, right? The autonomous digital
Yep.
workforce. He and his team are just doing all kinds of things. I've studied the Salesforce, the as well as you have gone in, used the models, tested them, played in the playgrounds to understand how the models, how do you create the agents, what do you do, how do you make them work effectively to not only manage the everyday and rote tasks, but how do you start to have it so that it can bring in some strategic value, right? Like looking for something that's interesting. So I'll just park that. Where I want to come back to though is I love your model and the visual that you created for us that, okay, we're all down this river and you were thinking like, okay, like in a data lake, we're moving here. Now we're in a river. We're moving really too fast. We're unstable and we're likely to crash and burn, right? There's going to be a
Flip
lot of that.
over, maybe drown. Yeah, exactly. Fail. Security breaches. There's all kinds of risks.
All of it. And then how the big companies, though, are craving, how can I swim in that ocean? And the way that you painted it out for me and our audience is that, as you say, as you're building those different decks, whether they be SLA, the service level agreements, or you find some way to be able to nuance what you have and to contextualize better, right, to your industry or your people, your talent base that you have, that collective resume for the company, the organization, you can start to differentiate even if you're the ocean liner or the tanker that's still in the same ocean. You can be a different model, right? Have those different systems of balustrades and things to stabilize you, and who gets there first,
You
right,
picked up on
will
the
be the winner.
analogies perfectly and the metaphors. Exactly.
Yeah, I get it. I love it. I love it. Now I want to come back to the ageism, though. I'm not letting you off the hook. So We're going to come back to that. So for the folks that don't have the visual experience and they're dialing in with the auditory experience on your favorite live stream provider, we've got Jim here who has declared himself as a boomer. I'm a Gen X. So we are not young. We are not the Gen Zs and Gen Alphas. And I want to talk about and get your thoughts about how the digital autonomous workforce, right, is coming in, that Salesforce is leading agents, how the great displacement slash the great replacement, right, has started to come in and really cut into those of us that are seasoned workers and all of our experience, like boom, click a button and get AI. How do we navigate that other than what you're saying is just spend hours and hours a day studying just to try to tread water? What do we do, Jim?
I like the 11-part question, so I'll take it in a couple of pieces here.
Sorry, yeah.
No, no, it's good. You talk as fast as me, if not faster. I love it. So a couple things. One is I talked about the order of magnitudes. You need to accelerate your cycle time for processing and invest. Warren Buffett reads what, 6, 7 hours a day. There's no accident. There's a reason he's an expert in what he does. And like you said, there's nothing magical he does. It's just disciplined. So I think there's a couple things here. One is somebody forgot to tell me I'm old. So I think it starts with your mindset. Carol Dweck, abundance. So I don't see myself as old. Visually, they see me as old, but my mind is is a huge advantage. Think about everything we're doing, and we're still nowhere near AGI, artificial general intelligence. We are still the smartest beings. I think what's going to hold people back is they are stuck in their dogma. We've always done it this way. And one of the ways I think I can demonstrate that the best on ageism is think about development. You're either a waterfall or an agile shop. There's disciplined ways to start a plan and do this. We had to blow up our entire development process because nobody was getting along on my team, and I was so ticked off. So let me tell you what we did. We said, okay, everything, if you have an idea, ideation and alpha, just build it. And we use no code platforms like n8n.com or Cursor. You can build stuff in a day or two. So I said, if you don't have it done in a prototype in 2 days, you can't build it. 2 days, not a product requirement stock, not a meeting, not customer requirements, not scaling, not security. Just run the marble through the pipe. 2 days is our cycle times now on ideation. Then when we get to the point where it works, we go, hey, innovation. So how do we take it so we can at least home run it, solve it for ourselves, and get it to beta? Then we bring in the more critical people in DevOps and operations, and they start nitpicking it. And I said, you got 1 week. They got 5 days. So we 2x'd the cycle time, and they're like, well, that's impossible. And we add a more SQL coder. We may have to use Snowflake in the background. Now, all of a sudden, within 2 weeks, I went from idea to beta. Then we
Wow.
get customers involved and we say, hey, this is what we're thinking. And we open the door as co-creators. Not we're in beta, which is a different thing for you and I in software. I said, hey, Laurelyn, I want to put this out in the market. We're going to do it towards SDR functions, sales development reps. I need you to sit and tell me how your tasks work and where your problems are. And I want to see if in 3 to 4 days, I can customize this to work for you. And if it does, I'm going to give you half off for running it. And you get the first 60 days for free. You in? Done. I'm in. That's the sales process today now. No long-term contracts, no integrations, no deployments. It's super fast. That's 15 business days from the idea I've already got in customers' hands. Nobody's that's going to be successful is thinking like, well, you're missing this. I'm like, hold it. The last phase is operationalize and scale. If the customer recognizes the value, now all of a sudden we can go ahead and work together to close out the holes. So how does that get to ageism? A couple of things. One is we are the most sophisticated being on the planet. Experience matters. Where it doesn't help us is when you get older, the dogma and the neural pathways are so hardened for most people, is you're horrible at ideation. Do you know what we're really good at? Innovation and beta and operationalizing and scaling. The kids stink at that. Where they're really good is 20 to 34, 35 years old, their ideation is off the hook. So we all get enamored with that. And what we forget is somebody like us needs to come in and go, whoa, 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 time out. We've done business process reengineering. We've done, RPO stuff. We've done machine learning models to optimize supply chains. Guys, time out. You're missing a core component of how the data flows and the practicality of the markets work. Yeah, you've got a cool app. It's an app. You didn't revolutionize the business. You don't understand the constraints. You don't know how to handle the currency fluctuations. You don't know how the ports function, the lag times, lead times. Guys, stop. You did some cool shit. Now let the next group of professionals, which is us. So how are we going to survive? Mindset. Understand we have a critical role to play where the ones of us that still have the creative muscle, like I'm sure yourself does, we can play in the first bucket, ideation, alpha. But boy, if you think you're going up against these young bucks and gals that are coming out of school from Berkeley, MIT, wherever, not a shot. And they're only in their late 20s. They're not super experienced. So that's how I think ageism will apply. We keep getting caught up in the press and the bullshit, which is, hey, AI is going to solve all these jobs. No, it's not. It's going to really accelerate the first bucket, which then I don't want to say adults because they are adults and brilliant, but you got to make it practical. So, anyways, that's how I see the balance between the existing group. If you stick with your dogma, you will not have a space. But if you get smart and know how to talk to the ideation folks, oh my God, we dominate. Because why? We're consultative. We listen to the client. We solve their problem. We document. We go ahead and confirm. We're detail oriented. These kids are, most of them are gunslingers, and that's why they're good at what they do. There's no boundaries. Anyways, long diatribe. I apologize, but that's how I see the market playing. I'm not as draconian as most folks. Unless you're on that first rung of the ladder and you're not creative, oh my God, you are screwed. If you're coming in the market and not creative, because you need to get into the ideation door. That's where you need to get in.
Oh,
Anyways,
and don't
I don't know if that
apologize for that
helps.
because no, totally. It was like a therapy session where it's like, yes, yes, you still add value, Laurel, and it doesn't matter if you're old and
I had
aging.
to find
But the
mine.
second,
You're not old and aging. You're just getting
no,
smarter and more valuable.
that's just it. And I think that's it, is unlocking that mindset. Like you, I do a lot of reading, studying, learning. And that's why I love doing these podcasts because every time I host a guest, I learn not one nugget, maybe two, three, four, or five nuggets, right? And you're like, this enriches my learning. And then this is the whole point of why I put the podcast together so that other people, like you said, these young bucks and gunslingers who are just phenomenal, rising up through the ranks very quickly, uninhibited, unintimidated, just go, right? Full steam, that they can hear from the rest of us who have been there and done that. And whether they like to hear that or not, it's truth, right? And we've learned the hard way. We've made the mistakes. We've fallen down the 7 times, but got up 8, right? And we have value to offer, right? It's that magical combination with the young folks and us older folks that
Just
we
stay
can
out of
make
that
stuff
first
happen.
bucket because you will be a dinosaur if you try to play in the first bucket. I'm
Yeah.
ridiculously creative because I just have no boundaries. I've been a CEO my whole life, and we had to innovate, and we couldn't afford not to look for new opportunities or listen. And that's why I applaud you. Is that's why I come on these things because it's like I've had a few questions that I was like, oh, I didn't really think about that. So the reason I can flow this with you is I've had to explain myself quickly to smart folks like you on podcasts. You don't have a long time to explain. And it's got to be so easy that when everybody walks away, they're like, oh, I get that whole, oh, Wells, Zodiacs, cruise ships, got it. Okay, we're at the Zodiac. No wonder everybody's all out of sorts because we're used to being on a cruise ship or an aircraft carrier. That's our whole careers. Even if you're a middle market or SME, we kind of use the big boy tools. SMBs are a train wreck disaster. They're going to be the last. They're going to be the laggards. They're going to be the last ones to use this. Yeah, it's like always. Small businesses always last.
Well, it is. Well, maybe banking. I would argue with you that banking is behind, but banking is certainly, starting to try to make efforts to catch up,
100%.
right? They're not so slow anymore because they're going, we're losing our customer base. What do we do? Because all these little innovative banks are coming in and saying, we've got these new tools, these ecosystems. We're building the relationships so that they're really going in the opposite direction of the big banks, which are focused on the analytics, the findings, the savings, going through all of
Absolutely.
that process, where the smaller ones are like, hey, here's our hand, here's a program, here's an event, let's build the relationship. So it's interesting to see that. And
Well, look
and
at the
and I
difference
agree.
between Schwab and Bank of America. Schwab's amazing to deal with. Bank of America is a disaster. Like they're
Yeah.
just painful. Schwab's like they get it. The reason they're pulling so many high net worth and people with 401ks and Roth IRAs, it's because they just made it easy to interact with them. B of A, they're 15 years behind the curve on their internet stuff. Schwab, like they're on it, man. There isn't anything I can't do. Trading in the markets, getting wires out. Um, I mean, it's all feels right. Like they're on it. Not super cutting edge, but or bleeding edge, but they're they're at the
They're
leading.
there. Yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
they're right up there.
For sure.
And and I also think again another a comment that you had made about being able to have an intellectual conversation about this is happening, that's happening, and even though there's a lot of thoughts, like I threw at you, like the 8-part question, right? And you're like, yeah, okay, blah, 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 broke it down. I also think that there's a component of ADHD and a lot of the folks that, through entrepreneurship and people that are independent and freelancing and consulting, that we have to take so many different bits of information and figure out how to assimilate them, which is how we started this call. You said, like in your superpower, and we have to jump from this set of problems to this set of problems that if we stay in the game, we get creative at trying to juggle all of this and then find ways to balance it and move it. Whereas I find that the younger folks really need that single track because they're so distracted by social media, this, that, Tinder, all the rest of the stuff, that it's too many things in their head. They can't do it. If you ask them to do two things, they can't. You got to give them one, they'll nail it, but you got to ask one. What do you think of that?
A little different take on it. I don't disagree with the premise. I just have a different take. I would say that the people that are diffuse and a disaster or that no matter what, I don't think the technology did anything but accelerate their incompetence. So it's like now I have an excuse to be on five different stupid platforms and waste my time, right? The the kids, and this is why I have a tremendous amount of faith and we're affiliated with the house fund at Berkeley. It's the investment fund there with Jeremy Fiance. And my partner Tim and I, we are so encouraged by the next generation of kids. It's phenomenal. And what I found with those folks is ADHD has another side of it that doesn't get as much attention. There's a hyper focus thing where you lose track of time. And what I found is I have this. It's the entrepreneur's 5 minutes. My wife's like in geological time. What's that? 50,000 years, five
Right.
seconds. And so we laugh. I'll be home in an hour. Four. We have no concept of time because we get tunnel vision. What I've found is great entrepreneurs, technologists, executors get tunnel vision to the expense of everything around them. So if you're diffuse and you can't get your life together, you're probably going to be in customer service or something that doesn't require high rigidity of delivery. Oh, by the way, your job will probably get, you know, destroyed, but that's all right. What I found with the people that, and think about the amount of energy drinks, the 8-hour binges on gaming, that's ADHD hyper focus. I would say most of them have that to the preclusion of good health, mental health, physical health, relationship health. That's where I see the downside of that more so than we have to keep them on task. I look at it this way. The hyper focused people are really good to partner with because they drill until they get to a solution. And then you have your fluffy folks running around with oh, look, squirrel. That those folks are always have to be given the task. They have to be told what to do. They tend not to be self-starters. They always blame you for the poor direction. They're frustrated and they're very hyperkinetic about, oh my gosh, what's going on? The FOMO crowd. Yeah, I mean, here's why we hire people that have athletic backgrounds. Think about every skill that they've had to have. I don't care if you're a cross country runner or you're solo. Man, you weren't solo. Cross country, the top five scores, so you were on a team, even though it was individual. Um, if you are a football player, if you're a basketball player, we don't have any stereotypes around, oh, they're not smart. Have you ever seen a pro or a college football playbook? It's pretty sophisticated. What we look for is people that are lifelong learners, disciplined, have grit. And we have five or six different ways we test for grit. Then we look at their just their mental confidence. Do they feel they can learn? I don't care. Like Vinny, he's our SDR that runs our agentic we call it our digital twin organization of smart agents. He didn't know any of this. We threw him in the deep end, had the floaties on. Now he doesn't need the floaties. We thought we were gonna have to give him a life, preserver because he was drowning. And about 4 weeks in, he goes, "Damn, this is a whole new way to do this job." And I'm like, there we go. So that's why we look for certain types of folks. They have been a golfer. They could have been a competitive archer, badminton, ping pong. I don't care. Competing, challenging in the arena. They're willing to put their ideas out. They're not afraid to advocate for themselves. That's what we look for. So, anyways, that's how we kind of address that whole realm of the world.
And I get it. I've worked with a lot of youth and interns and all different programs and things, and through teaching and through my business, all of that. That's grit. I think that's one of the things that is really missing. And I find it ironic, actually, that Gen X, which is considered to be the most resilient given the era that we grew up in. Oh, no, 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 the boomers, right? Okay, you got we were not going to get into the, boomer versus X, but X is regarded as resilient because, we were the first. Mom got divorced. Mom gave us a latchkey around the neck and said, hey, go figure it
Fair
out,
enough.
right? And then we've given birth to Gen Z, who's the least resilient. Now, fair enough, they've had a lot to deal with, right?
Too
And
many
they're coming of
helicopter
age.
parents, too many trying to avoid them from failure. My kids, I'm like, life's not fair. You got to figure, you got to take the lumps. And guess what? Surprise, my kids are super successful. Shocker. I was lucky, I guess so.
Well, no, it's a combination of things. I had with my stepdaughter. She was given participation trophies at different sports teams, and I'm like, no, 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 take it back. Like my trophy. I'm like, no, you didn't earn this. You tried out for
My
the team.
daughter broke hers in half and threw him in the trash, and they said she was a bad sport. She goes, participation. She goes, I didn't place, I didn't win. All I learned is I stink and I got to get better. That's what you want to take from when you get your butt kicked on something. And guess what? She got better. She became a black belt. Oh, by the way, she became a police officer on SWAT, now a detective, and the first woman ever for SWAT. So it's like she kind of knows how to take things against her and turn them into her superpower.
That's perfect. And so let's use that as a segue in figuring out like what to do and what not to do. What do you think businesses are like with respect to what's trending, just not getting it done right or not getting it done well right now? Because you work with so many marquee companies and smaller companies and saying, hey, this is how we turn on those flywheels, those growth engines. But you guys aren't doing this right and you're doing this wrong. Talk to us about what's being done wrong, Jim.
It's funny you say that because we do very little of that anymore. What I learned very early on is we're horrible consultants because we don't have any empathy for the change management process because we change so quickly. And one of the things my friend explained to me, he goes, think of it like the Richter scale. 1.1 to 1.2 is a 10x amount of energy. And versus when you go to 1.0 to 2 is 100x more powerful earthquake. And so I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means, but it makes sense. He says, think of change that way from 1 to 1.1. Some companies, whoa, whereas some companies can go to 1 to 2, 10x it, no problem. So the first thing is as we were looking at this is um, we didn't have a lot on the empathy side for change management, so we changed our approach. What we said is if we could work with your company and bring ideation and innovation that you didn't have to invest in, that you could turn on as a revenue stream within 6 months, as six figures in a year, within seven figures for yourself, are you interested? So we went it from the standpoint of everybody's trying to grow and we self-selected people. It's sort of like everybody laughs when, or I laugh when everybody tells me how great private schools are. They self-selected. They picked all the smart kids. Shocker, they're all going to college. We're great. No, you're not. You're just really good at getting the best students. You're good recruiters. I think it's the same thing with business. I think the self-selectors on this are the people that have figured out how to grow their companies early on, path to cash. That's the real driver here, not the technology, not AI, not leveraging it. What I found is if you try to jump up and give them some kind of technology and they don't, and it may be a tiny flywheel, if they don't really understand how to get the path to cash, and that's completely different than driving revenue, driving leads. It's in my bank account, cash basis, can I pay my bills? It's so amazing how many companies are struggling to pay their bills. It's like, why do we need to introduce technology when you don't even have your unit economics and your value prop to the market nailed? So I always tell them, guys, we don't want to deal with you yet. Now, if we can be part of the solution and we could get them more juice for the squeeze from their top of funnel prospecting, we could give them in market opportunities. Okay, we could be part of the problem, but we let we partner now with performance marketing companies, so they're responsible for doing the hard lift. Or platforms, marketing automation, CRM, sales lead acceleration platforms. We power them with our prospects and insights so that we become the energy and the water company to those people versus, hey, let me tell you how to use our water and electricity. So we are very clear of we have a very um, bright line between where we help and don't. Because we used to do that. Oh my God, it was painful because they didn't like our suggestions, they wouldn't take them. And you'd be like, why did I waste all those time? Even if they paid me money, it wasn't worth it because of the frustration. Then they blamed us for, hey, you should have told us this sooner. You're like, oh my God, you're this way. How many people complain to their utility company only when it's off? So
True.
it's
And
easier for me to make money if I'm a utility company. So that's how we positioned ourselves.
so in some of the like things you're talking about, I was just saying what it was called, blitz scaling. That's the book I was looking up by Reid Hoffman.
Yeah.
So like I know you're like
Yep.
a fan of his as well. And reading that and getting that flywheel turned on, it was all anchored in, like you said, understanding your unique selling proposition, right? What's the problem you're solving for the customers and how do you solve it so that they equate you, your brand, your company, the solution, right, with the problem and the reason why that they can solve it, right? They'll give you money if they do. But I liked actually better how Alex Hormozzi's, right, the $100 million deal,
Oh
where
yeah,
it is
offer.
all
Yeah,
about
$100
that.
million
Yeah,
offer. Yep.
offer. Sorry, I said deal. And but it's really, really simple, right? Find an audience that has a problem, find an audience that has money to solve said problem. Make sure the audience is accessible to you, right? If you're selling, something on for the people that go up to the moon and eat space nutrients, well, like there's 2.2 people. That's not really much of an audience, even though NASA pays well, I've heard. But and then how do you bring it and package it all together? And I think that this is what a lot of companies are struggling with in my analysis. And I'm curious what you see with your business intelligence background and analysis, that they're struggling to say that USP in a clear way because they're like, I'll use AI, I'll help to get it to figure it out. I'll do this, I'll do that. But it's not matching the problem solution with the customer. Are you seeing that as part of the core problem, the USP definition?
Yes and no. I would
Okay.
say in the tech space, if you just think of, there's over 50,000 SaaS companies. There's 30,000 new AI companies that have been minted in the last couple of years. It's 80,000 companies. Well, there's 28 million small businesses in the US. So I look at this in a couple of ways. One is, and I like blitzscaling. That doesn't apply to 99% of businesses, and here's why. Blitzscaling works when you can leverage digital at a speed to interact, find, identify, curate, respond to customers in the thousands of inbound inquiries. If I was a roofing company, I can barely do 100, 200 calls a week if I'm a small local roofer. So I look at flywheels versus hamster wheels. So most businesses are on a hamster wheel. They're just trying to show up at work, take care of their customers in their local market, feed the 5 or 6 people that work for them themselves, get leverage out of their employees, be a decent human, maybe get them a little retirement and some healthcare. That is the majority of businesses in the US. Forget what's going on in Silicon Valley or Silicon Alley in New York or Austin or wherever. The problem is that's not exciting. A plumbing business isn't exciting. A roofing business isn't exciting. A billboard advertising business isn't exciting. So what we do is we go to the really cool stuff, AI, data centers, like all this stuff that's getting huge dollars to scale. I think blitz scaling there really works and within an industry, but not as a rule of thumb. When you start to realize I don't need a lot of energy and effort to make my hamster wheel go, I can just get on and start pedaling. And maybe I get a few people with me and I get a bigger hamster wheel and it goes. Those books are, and here's the analogy I use. If you and I know the Ford Pinto, remember that little crappy little car that Ford built?
We
If you,
we had one. My dad's foot went through when he hit the
the
accelerator
Ford,
one day.
yep.
It all rusted right through. His foot went through, and we were on a
Yep.
long distance trip.
Everybody
He
has a
dumped it.
Ford Pinto story that I know
Yep.
for sure, because that's all we could afford. What I explain to people is if you're looking at one of those funny cars that goes 280 miles an hour on the drag strip, it needs nitro, right? It needs a high octane that we don't ever see versus 87 leaded, unleaded, right? Well, if we have a Pinto and you're trying to put blitz scaling into a Pinto, that's nitroglycerin, that's nitro. You don't need it. And what happens is we try to start going, oh, what do I think of this scaling in the USP? Most companies don't need a USP. They just need to answer the damn phone, do what they say they're going to do, and charge a fair price. Literally, their USP is baseline execution. I'm amazed at how many companies fail at that. Their people aren't friendly. They're not quick to quote. They don't follow up. They don't communicate on time. Their billing isn't accurate. They make it hard to do business with them. Outside of those things, baseline, they don't need a USP because they can't even get the basics done. Put them aside. That's by 20 something million of the companies. So the people competing on the internet I think you start figuring out path to cash, who has my customer, where's my leverage. What we look at is I'm blown away by how many times I'm at a board meeting where I ask, where's the leverage in the deal? What do you mean? I'm like, oh my God. I go, people think I add marketing dollars and then I get a result and then I get a cost per lead, a CAC conversion rate, and then I generate revenue. Bullshit. I can come up with, I not have, we have a whole entire program we give to our entrepreneurs we work with. Here's how to go ahead and do leverage business development, not partnerships, not BD, leveraged. And once we explain the concept, they're like, oh my God, I never thought that way. Because CEOs, I was just talking to a good friend of mine, and we were talking to his team, very accomplished guy. And I said, the CEO's number one job is to talk people into doing stuff they shouldn't based on our size. They're like, what? I go, I got companies to partner with me when we were 6 people and they were a Fortune 500. We shouldn't even have been allowed in the parking lot. Forget being a vendor and providing any service. There's no way we talk them into doing stuff they shouldn't do. So that to me is the middle job of a CEO. Execute, talk people into doing stuff. Then is there an opportunity to create a flywheel on a product, not the company? Because if I can do it on a product and my unit economics work, can I replicate it for the next product? People try to do the whole business at once. What I learned is if I can invest here in one and make it work, then can I extend it to the next one and so on? And then I have 4 or 5, a pantheon, as Jay Abraham calls it, of revenue streams. And most people are like a springboard, right? They have the base and then they have one revenue stream coming out like a springboard and it topples over. The Parthenon is it'll have 6 or 8 pillars of revenue. And so if one falls away, the whole building doesn't collapse. I say start with your springboard and the USP. And the USP is we do what we say. Ooh, there's a novel concept. We are dealing with closet companies at our home right now. I'm blown away by how bad the process is on a $20,000 sale. I'm just sitting here going, I wouldn't buy from any of these. And my wife's going to buy from who she likes. But the stumble, fumble, drop the ball, it's 20 grand. It's almost a car. And you would think they'd be sophisticated clown shops, the whole group of them. So anyways, I don't want to get overly indexed on tech companies and blitz scaling, but the flywheel piece, just do one and make it work.
And I think that's maybe the key message here, right, to all of us, because we've got a wide range of folks, and I don't even know the full scope of all of our listeners, but a lot of them are those middle-aged entrepreneurs and they're doing things. And if they could just focus on doing one thing and doing it well, like you said, plus the basics, right? Follow up on your customers, build that relationship. Hey, how are you? Is it going? Hey, I noticed this. What do you think? Right? And building that, then they're way ahead of their competitors.
Asking for referrals, making sure they're still happy, setting up a refresh program. Like I'm like amazed at how they miss obvious stuff.
Yeah, well,
I mean, basic obvious.
see, that's where those years of experience come in, Jim. So
There
where
you
can
go.
people find you? Jim Weldon, CEO of Prospect Desk. How can people find you?
Uh,
Where can people find you?
well, first of all, I appreciate that. It was great chatting with you here, and it's always good to debate back and forth. It's www.prospectdesk.ai. That's our company site. You can talk to Alex on our phone number up there. By the way, it's an AI bot, and it's really freaking good on answering the phone and finding us. Alex is really good. Or you can do an email to jim@prospectdesk.ai. I answer all my own emails. I just think it's one of those important things that you can't get too far away from a prospect or a customer or the market, or you're going to be far away from your revenue. So always glad to respond to anybody. And I really appreciate you having me on and sharing me with your audience.
Oh, absolutely. I've enjoyed this so much and learned so much. But your comment there about you answer your own emails, Grammarly purchasing now, I forget what company is to as their email minion to answer all your emails. Thoughts? I guess not a plus on that one, right?
You know, I would say if it was if it carried your tone and brand and was authentic, which is it's getting better by the way those things are. Looking with Fixer answers a lot of mine, and it's 80% spot on. FYXER, their stuff's good. But I always tell people bot generated. I'll put it in the PS just to be full disclosure, and I have it added to that just so it does it if it does. But I read every email that I can just out of a habit. I'm old school, man. Remember, I'm a boomer. This
Right.
email thing. It's still pretty good for us.
I'm X, right? It's also good. Last question we have before we jump off. It is our signature question of the show. 250 some guests later, We had started
Nice.
as the grit files. Now we're small biz stories. If we looked into your closet, because you talked about decorating and redoing your closet to make it, of course, look everything beautiful, what would we see in there? Shoes, footwear, boots, ties, some other bit of clothing that personifies who you are, Jim Weldon.
Super easy. You would see way too many pickleball paddles and pickleball shoes and pickleball shirts. And I am going to nationals this year. I won a golden ticket event. So now I have the chops to back it up. So my wife says, there isn't a conversation you don't seem to work that into. And I did it again today.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love it. I've never had that answer before. A pickleball shirt. Love it. And you
Sure.
did
Oh,
bring
baby,
me.
there's 25 of those. 10 pairs of shoes, 10 pickleball paddles.
That's awesome. I love it. So, with that, this is a wrap. Again, Jim Weldon, CEO of Prospect.ai. Thanks for tuning in to Small Biz Stories.
Great for having, great to be here.
And how about that fantastic intro by Touch Circle?